A very good afternoon to you, Francis, and to our viewers at home. We're coming to you live from the Cape Town International Convention Center on day 2 of the Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement. This being the business forum that is sitting for the first time in person right here at the convention center. We, of course, are going to be sitting for 3 days, and you're right to say that the economy on the African continent just thrusted under the spotlight where this engagement is concerned. We're talking about the market, building one market for Africa in terms of those trade and investment areas that can actually be tapped into to ensure that the economies on the African continent get the best out of the resources that are on the ground. So today, just seeing a lot of high-level discussions underway as we speak right now. We just come out of the pharmaceutical sector's business engagement that saw a high-level panel discussions underway to tap into the pharmaceutical space in terms of how Africa can benefit through this intra-trade between the nations to ensure that we get a flourishing pharmaceutical sector. I'm going to bring into the conversation now Stavros Nicolaou. He's, of course, coming through from Aspen and a member of the SA BRICS Council who'll just let us in on the panel discussion that you had earlier on just a moment ago, I must say. Just, of course, looking for solutions for Africa and building that economy. Welcome to the SABC.
Katlego, thanks very much for having me. This is a critical summit because Africa continues to be, certainly in my sector, a serial importer of medicines and vaccines. Now, we have the most disproportionate disease burden of any continent anywhere in the world, but yet we are importing most of our medicines and vaccines. It's an unacceptable situation. It's untenable. And today was very much about unpacking in practical terms how we can start to change that and turn a trade deficit into hopefully one day a trade surplus, or at very least bridging that trade deficit that exists. For example, our continent has 68% of the world's HIV population, but we import 90% of our antiretrovirals. So that can't be. We saw during COVID how Africa could not get vaccines. It cost African lives and livelihoods, and we need to change that, and we need to change it only by implementing and executing on plans. The plans exist already. We've got to use the free trade area to aggregate our volumes, but above all, we've got to get African governments and the procurement agencies around the world to start procuring vaccines and medicines for Africans from African companies. We need to change that mindset of importing the medicines. And we can only do that, as I said, if there's accelerated political will and procurement mechanisms to do this.
We're talking about building one economy. How beneficial is it for South Africa and for Africa for us to actually have this one economy and this intra-trade without all of the hurdles and the tariffs that really have been stumbling blocks for the development and the transformation of the economies on the African continent?
It's absolutely critical. It's critical because Africa is a fragmented continent at this point in time. So we have to compete against China, we have to compete against India, America, etc. Now, those are very big markets. So if you take China, 1.4 billion people, an economy of $17 trillion. A single country in Africa cannot compete against that. We've seen that time and time again. However, you aggregate all of Africa's volumes, all 54 countries, suddenly you've got a population of 1.3 billion, an economy that starts exceeding $3 trillion, and all of a sudden you can start competing again. And competitiveness is all about economies of scale and volume. We cannot achieve that on a divided, 54 disaggregated country basis. The free trade area brings all 54 countries together on an aggregated basis, and it gives us a really good opportunity to not only manufacture locally, but to compete for global volumes, which is what we ought to be doing.
We are in the third year where this agreement is concerned. We've seen around 54 nations signing to form part of this agreement, and we're talking about a buy-in from the private sector as well to ensure that at least there is a movement where this area is concerned. Really, when you look at it from the business side of things, what have been the stumbling blocks that could say that we are not moving the way that we're supposed to be moving, and this buy-in from the private sector? Also, how important is it going to be for the private sector to form part of this going forward?
So again, I'm going to talk for my sector, and I think what is lacking is a capacity to implement. And I think this has come out repeatedly in the last day and a half, is that Africa has good plans, but our ability to operationalize, execute and implement the plans are the problem. Now, to implement any plan, you need to have the capacity. So we have to take 7 priority sectors, including pharmaceuticals as one of those 7, and say we're going to build the procurement capacity to allow regional manufacturing to flourish on the continent. So 2 things, capacity and execute and implement on the plans.
Stavros Nicolaou, thank you very much, sir, for your time. He's coming through, of course, from Aspen as a critical role to play. They have a critical role to play here, just coming out of that pharmaceutical engagement on the sidelines of this business forum that is underway in Cape Town. You heard them talking about the need really for this not to be a talk shop, but to see the economies on the African continent realizing the benefits of just working together. So we also today going to be hearing around issues of industrialization, Francis. We're also going to be tapping into the agro-processing side as well, where the sector is concerned, the potential of these sectors to feed into the economies of their nations and, of course, the economies on the African continent. Francis?